pretty constant question. How long are my rest periods? Long enough. And what I mean by that is not just like do whatever. I'm saying long enough that I can kind of catch my breath, relax a little, get my heart rate back down to workout normal. Because my regular walk around normal is probably down here. My cardio normal is like maybe here. My mid-set peak is probably up freaking here. And then my kind of between sets is like a bit higher than baseline. So I want to get down to that baseline, which, if you think about it, would just kind of mean getting to a point where I'm not overloading an oxygen debt that I've built up with my blood, you know? So if you're really huffing, you're not recovered yet. Once you get back to regular normal, then you're pretty much there. And really, I want to get to a point where I'm ready to do another set and not wait much longer than that. Because if I sit here for 20 minutes between sets, I'm gonna lose. I'm not even gonna get pumped. I'm gonna maybe get slightly pumped every set and then lose it in those 20. You know, I'm not sitting here trying to hit a 5x5. I'm trying to hit a 5 by failure. You know, that's reasonably as quick as I can. You know, there's no reason to dilly-dally. Once you're ready, go nuts. So I'm gonna sit here for another second and try to make this one the craziest one of all, and then move on. Another brain-rattling hypothetical for you to think about, right? Your house is on fire. Somehow you are in the central area, flames all around. Right? Would you rather or rather not every firefighter who came in to save you have the ability to at least rep 275 and squat, you know, at least 3 plates for reps, 4 plates for a single, right? Would you like that to be the case so that they can, you know, break down the inferno surrounding you that you think may be your final moments to bring you to safety? Or not, right? Now, not everything is a life and death situation like that, but I think a lot of arguments can be at least given a certain guidance one way or the other by taking things to the extreme, right? So I'm not saying everyone has to be a bodybuilding freak. I do not think that, and I don't believe that. But would I rather live in a world where everybody worked out for an hour a day, some way or another, or one where no one did? I'm going to lean towards the former. Yeah, I always figure which one's the former, which one's the latter. I'm going to lean towards the one where everybody's lifting. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to be everybody, but I certainly would not mind, right? And we live in a better world, man. Well, I can't think of like a million different examples that I actually like run into and have problems with or anything. But it's certainly nice if everybody could help, you know, the older lady getting on the plane, pick up her luggage and, you know, throw in the overhead bin, right? Things like that. So that's what I want to see, right? If that's the change I want to see in the world, then I want to take my part and at least, you know, make it happen, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, goodness. But you're bigger. But I think I spoiled myself with getting into competition shape. Because now I'm excited to get lean again. I almost feel like I might be getting close to the same excitement for being big and lean as I am for being big and, you know, freaking strong and bulked. Which I think, if that's a good balance, you're good. But if you get a little too caught up and sucked into like, oh, I gotta stay lean, I gotta fucking look sweet all the time, all year round, you're never really gonna progress, at least to a degree, you know, because we think about it, working out, newbie gains here in phase 1, rapid progress, you know, year maybe 1.5 to 2 or 3, taper off a little, and usually around there, you're gonna find this kind of slower period where if things aren't in perfect order for progress, no progress will be made, you know? So that's where it's, you gotta keep the gas on, right? Calories, training, consistency, diet. Make sure you got a jug of freaking water all the time so you can stay like maximally hydrated. Because all these things, even though, you know, it's just like it just sounds like stuff you should do. right? It's like, oh, take your vitamins, do your homework, you know, clean your room, just random little, like, just walk, don't jaywalk. It's just little things where it's like, oh, you know, but they've got real consequences. You know, if you're carved up and really full of food, you're gonna be strong the next day. And then you're gonna go harder in the gym, and then you're gonna wanna eat more to recover because of how hard you just worked out. And then you're just on this positive feedback loop, you know, but it won't just happen. You kind of have to, you got to give yourself that need and then take action because of it, right? You can't go Super Saiyan just because you want to. You got to put yourself in a position where it's like, oh shit. Okay. Maybe this is just me. You know, maybe this is just me and you know, scrolling on TikTok, and that's my biggest window into seeing what everybody's doing. But I feel like we're you know, this isn't necessarily related to me specifically. I'm just kind of looking at it as an observer. I think the whole portal of scrolling on your phone and looking at shit, we're approaching the singularity of social media, right? I mean, I think stage one was everybody, well, stage one was chill. Stage one was, you know, people would post videos and whatever, and then that was the end of it. But now we've kind of optimized the situation where, you know, if you are Instagram and you see that TikTok did really well with that scrolling feature, moving between shit, out comes Reels, right? Out comes YouTube Shorts. Out comes, you know, blank. So it's, you know, you're looking at it as though it's a situation where it's like, okay, how can we get the most attention per minute or per swipe or anything? It's getting extra funky. I think now more than ever, I need to chill out on my screen time. Ooh, it's getting nuts here. I was trying to think of some kind of Matrix reference to talk about, like with working out. I couldn't think of anything. All I can really say is, you know, at least give a little bit of time out of your day. And shit, you're hardly giving it up, because I know you're like me. I know you've been scrolling on your phone just looking at random shit for, I mean, an unhealthy amount of hours, right? That's me talking to me as well. So adding 30 minutes on the seated bike to that setup, right? And then just popping a squat, pedaling while you're scrolling, which you were going to do anyway. Not that hard. Not that difficult. Here's let me splice in a picture of my cardio setup now. I might need to put a heater in there in the winter time if it gets cold. But at least for now in the summer, especially in the mornings, it's like 60 in there. It's pretty much perfect. So I threw a sweater on this morning. I was really freaking drenched. But yeah, that's the kicker. So I don't want to turn this chest into a cardio talk, but I swear, having it right there, that's the best. That's peak cardio. Because, you know, I've done it before. Actually, I've done it for a long time, where I would go to the gym twice. Once in the morning to do cardio, once later for the actual workout. And I tell you something, not an efficient use of time. You know, because if you got to drive to the gym every morning, I mean, that time adds up. You know, that's not passive. That's, I mean, potentially an hour, right? You look at the maps, 15-minute drive. But now you got to put your shoes on, you got to get all your stuff ready. You sit in the car for a second, you're not just immediately flooring it out of the driveway, like instantly. So then you sit here, and then you drive, and when you park, you probably sit there for a second too, and then you do the same thing on the way back. That could totally double your transit time from just how long it would normally take to actually get there. Not good, right? Why do you think there's videos of Ronnie Coleman with a treadmill right in his living room, pointing at the TV, so he could get his freaking cardio in? You know, it's because it's nice having it right there. Very convenient, because if you can minimize the time from sort of, well, let's just say thought to action, then the likelihood that you're actually going to take that thought to action is much more likely. You know, right? How often do you just kind of think about locking in, or maybe you're talking to somebody like, this summer, dude, summer 25, Jason, me and you, Jason, we're locking in. Summer 2025, they're not gonna recognize us when we get back to whatever, you know, come fall, come that next season, you know. But a lot of times those ideas just get fizzled into the air. And I'd like to think that the guys who really do lock in are able to kind of take that extra wasted energy that people have, that they just put out in the world, and it's like they got a butterfly net scooping it up out of the air for themselves, you know. And that's that's kind of half the logic, you know. If you're really, I don't want to say secure, yeah, probably, if you're like 100% like totally secure with yourself, and you know, you're real, I don't know, let's just say you're real mature, then you're probably doing whatever it is you're doing simply because you like it and for no other reason. You know, I would not say, yeah, I mean, well, there's no way to judge it like that. But for the most part, I mean, you know, I would like to think I'm working out just because I like to work out. But it's not a bad aspect of it that I know a lot of people don't want to do it just because it's hard. So it's kind of this little bit of a sort of chip on your shoulder thing where it's like, yeah, nobody else is doing what I'm doing, and then it makes you feel cooler to do it. You know, if you back when you were a kid in school and your project got picked as like the, you know, the freaking example of like, this is how you should all be doing it, or you know, any scenario like that, that just feels good, right? It feels good to be doing something not everybody can do. So that's half of the hype of the working out anyway. But yeah, so it's not, I guess it can seem a little daunting to the uninitiated to throw in a whole routine of, you know, a 2-hour chunk or even an 1.5-hour chunk of their day dedicated to working out, something they've never done before. But the sooner you get into it, the better. But of course, if you're here, you're already a long time lifter. You know what you're freaking doing. Because if you can't let it go, it's not worth holding on to. So a lot of these guys, I mean, it's a constant battle. No, of course I'm not talking like serious, but just a little back and forth of always second guessing whether or not I should go for it. You know, should I bulk up? Oh, I don't know. I just got my first bicep vein. I can see my abs right now. I don't want to lose that. Or vice versa. Oh, should I start dieting down? Well, I just hit 225 for 8. You know, I don't want to lose that. Or I just whatever. I don't want to deal with counting my calories. It's always just, okay, I want to do something. Some of it's going to be kind of hard. I don't really want to do it. You know, this is it's a good, not a good, but it's an interesting way to look at the world, right? It's not necessarily that people are making decisions on a day-by-day basis of, I want to do this and I don't want to do this, right? That's how it should be. But it's usually it's a lot of, okay, I want to do this, it's going to be a little trickier, you know, I don't want to do it. You know, it's always it's a battle of, okay, what can I gain? How much is it going to cost? You know, and it's not like it's not a tangible cost, right? Because if it was, and if working out was somehow quantitatively not worth it, nobody would do it, right? So it's more so almost an inflationary effect of what effort is to people. You know, somebody who's going to be a little a little tougher, be it mentally, just straight physically, or you know, more consistent with themselves, and their baseline effort's a bit higher, they're not going to have a problem adding something new to their routine and working on it, and you know, sometimes feeling like they have to grind for it because they're just not really feeling like it. You know, and you can't just rely on some motivational edits. It's like you got to tell yourself, look, you said you were going to do this. Now it's time to do it, right? So some guys, their threshold for effort is it's low. Just look at it as it is. Some guys have a low threshold for effort. So if you are someone who knows that you're up there, who knows you have that ability to bring it, why not? What's stopping you? I know it's not anybody else. Plus, you get that kind of chip on your shoulder effect of knowing that you're doing something that not a lot of people can do. You know, we're not so far from our sort of biological thought processes. Scarcity increases demand, increases value, right? If not everybody can do something, and you can, even better for you. You know, so that's sometimes I think about that if I'm doing something a little harder than normal. I really had to bring it when I was dieting for those 2 shows. Like, I can diet, you know, I can get decently lean without too much trouble, right? Like, you give me 3 months, I'm locked in, no biggie. And some of that is just because I've been eating so much food for so long, I'm sick of food and I don't even want to eat anymore. So it's like I'm kind of on a rebound effect where the dieting down and getting leaner is just easier for a period of time, right? You give me 3 months, easy breezy, you know. And then once I push it a little further, that's when it actually starts to, you know, get a little more tricky, right? Because there is no half-assing getting lean. You do it or you don't. You know, that is a very accurate situation of do or do not. There is no try, right? Well, yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, you're trying, all right. You know, so it's like if you're really just working out for a specific end goal, like you want to be the same size as this guy, or you want to lift the same weight as whoever, and you're like, okay, once I can do that, then everything in my whole life will be perfect. You're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself just a little bit. Now, I mean, you know, that could be kind of an endless turmoil where you're always, you know, searching and grasping. You never feel like you have enough, and then it's just a negative mentality because your whole workout is like, fuck, I know where I want to be, or you're taking out your frustration of the weights. Which, if it works, it works. I'm not one to say otherwise. If you're making gains, I don't care how you made them. If you made them, they're yours. You got them. You're good. You know. But for me, at least, I don't want to come into the gym feeling like I'm having a damn frustration match. Like I'm just fucking pissed at every set I'm doing, you know, and I never feel like I'm enough. I don't think that's the answer. But of course, there is somewhere in the middle ground, because you do want to tell yourself that you want to work on something and progress, but not maybe so much because you feel like you're missing something or you're maybe in some way inadequate, but just because you want to do it and you know you're capable of doing it. You know, it's just a middle ground. That's where the gym gets a lot of hate, and sometimes justfully so, because, you know, so many, even just younger dudes, you know, they're not talking about the gym like it's just a fun thing to do and it's, you know, something that they enjoy to have in their daily routine. They're talking about it, dude, gym or nothing, get pumped or nothing. You don't work out? You know, I'll drop some F-bombs, but that's a little bit too abrupt, you know. And they're like, don't forget it, man. You know, there's more to life. Like there is. That might seem kind of silly coming from me because obviously the gym's my whole thing, but hey, don't forget the gym is supposed to kind of just be an activity of the day. And let's say you work out for an hour and a half. You know, let's say you've got an hour and a half dedicated. You park, you walk in, you leave. It's been 90 minutes, maybe 100. You know, whatever, hour 40. That's just your own time. Work out, get after it, enjoy it, come home and kind of reap the rewards of what you got to do there. But, you know, don't, if it starts to take away, if it starts to make you anxious, if it starts to just kind of maybe eat at you in some sort of way, then the problem isn't the gym. The problem might potentially just be, you know, how you're going about it. And I don't think this is like crazy common, but I've heard some crazy shit that some kids will tell me. And I say kids, I mean, you know, like teenagers, whatever. Especially when I was working out at college, because I'd be going to gyms and everybody was just a lot younger. I mean, I'd hear some crazy stuff. Like these guys are saying, like, you know, every set I'm doing, I need to convince myself that if I can't get this rep, then I'm a loser. Like I don't even deserve to be alive. And I'm like, okay, man, this is getting a little wild here. You know, I'm not gonna knock him for, you know, what he's doing, but hitting a set of squats to failure, that should just be kind of, I mean, that's just me, you know. Now we're talking conjecture. This is simply opinion, right? But that's kind of my thoughts on the matter. Because if I've got a crazy set of something, and I, you know, do 3-4 reps, and then I back off, I'm like, what am I doing? I did nothing. You know, this is one aspect of kind of, I don't want to say science-based training, but just kind of an analogy of what is really happening during a set that I really like. It's thinking that, you know, only the last few reps when you're really in that failure range are where shit's actually going to go down. you know. And of course, I don't think that that's completely the case. You know, if I came to the gym every day and I did every set, I mean, with some with heavy weight, but with only 5 reps in reserve, I don't think I would shrink. I think I would probably stay the same. You know, I'd be moving around the same weight. But do I think I'd really be pushing myself to progress? Not exactly, right? If you only do what you know you're capable of, then where's the force that's gonna, you know, actually propel you forward to do things that you're not used to doing? You know. So the idea is, let's say you're doing a set of bench, right? Maybe let's just say machine press, so that you get a bit more constant tension. Let's say dumbbell bench. Dumbbell. Honestly, if I had to pick one, I think I used to say barbell incline. I think dumbbell incline would be the movement, because at the top, well, now I'm talking about chest, but at the top, if you're holding 2 dumbbells, you're not really resting. You're still flexing your chest to keep them from falling out to your sides. So it's really constant tension throughout. You know, so if I can only do one, that would be it. At least in terms of the chest press. But you know, let's say you've warmed up. You're a guy who can do 100-pound dumbbells for 12. So maybe 13 if you got a good night's rest, but 12 is about your normal failure range when you really bring it, right? So let's say you come in, you warm up, you're fresh, you've been doing the cables, your chest is warm, maybe even have a little bit of a chest pump from doing some cable flies to, you know, warm yourself up, get yourself firing right. You're ready. You know, you warm up, you grab the 50s, you grab the 70s, you grab the 85s, maybe even do a few reps with the 90s just to make sure you're good. But you're about to do a working set with the 100s, right? So if you throw those up, 5 reps, easy. And by easy, I mean guaranteed. You know, if somebody told me, Sam, life or death, you get to warm up, but if you can't do the 150s for 5, that's it. I would not be worried. Right? I might make sure, you know, I don't drop them or something, but I know I can do that. That's well within my ability, you know. Now, if someone said, same situation, but 20, and I'm talking like, you know, full, not just like down here, like I mean a full rep where they kind of at least almost touch, you know, I'm not saying like I completely straighten my arms, but you know, I get up to a top rep. If someone said 20, whoa, that'd be a little much, you know. So that's where I'm really bringing it, and I've got to push it to the point where the only thing stopping me from doing another rep is the fact that I'm just physically incapable, you know. So what I'm getting at is those 5 reps, I think it's not a bad idea to look at it as though all they're doing is, you know, gradually wearing you down to the point where now the next 5 are going to be a bit harder, right? Let's say we're looking at those next 5 reps. So really, let's just say those next 3, just to, actually no, it'd be those next 2, right? Those next 2 are getting a little trickier, but you can still do them. You know, 7, you got that easy. Right, so now it's the last 5 reps of the set. This is a number that gets that I've seen brought up, but it could be any. You could say the last 4, the last 2, the last 3, whatever. But it's the last few where you're approaching failure, right? You know, you do another 1, you do another 2, you do another 3, and you're like, okay, whew, all right. And these, it's almost like you have a second set inside of that first one, because of course you had to get yourself amped up, like, all right, let's make this shit happen. You throw the dumbbells up, you do those first 8, which you know you can do for sure. And then you almost have this second level of kind of, you know, telling yourself to bring it, because those 8 were totally doable. And now it's those last few reps where you're really hitting failure. That's the test, right? That's the test of just how hard you can really push it. And I think at least for heavier working sets, if you make those last ones happen, especially the ones that are the hardest, you're setting yourself up for success in more ways than one, because for one, that set is just going to be better. You know, I feel as though if every set of those leg presses, if I, you know, let's say I did 7 reps instead of whatever I could get, like 10 or 9, or I guess the last one was 7, but that's a little different because I, you know, worked my way up to that. But let's say every one of those sets, I left 3 reps in the tank. I don't think it would have been as good of a lift. And on a more just like, you know, self-oriented kind of level, now I'm the guy who has to leave reps in the tank because I don't want to do them. So, you know, come a day where I'm not really feeling it. So let's say, I mean, my recovery might have been a little scrappy or just whatever, maybe I'm not in a good headspace. So now the odds are against me because I'm just, my limit isn't now that 10, which I can do when I feel good. Now it's like 8, right? Like, I'm still bringing it, but that's just as much as I could do on that day if I'm just a little off, maybe a little dehydrated or something. So now if I'm still aiming for that, leave 3 reps in the tank, now I'm still only going to like 4 reps, So adjust accordingly. I mean, I'd probably just do lighter weight for, 10 or something. But, it's that threshold of intensity where from beginning of the set to the end, right, the intensity starts at 0 for the most part and scales up to 100. So for at least a good chunk of your real working heavier sets and even lighter squeezing ones where the hard part isn't maybe the weight, it's just the fact that it's starting to burn and it's just not going to move, I want to bring it. And I think the guys who do bring it are better off. They will make better gains, they will make better progress, and they'll have more fun doing it because their bar of effort, their bar of intensity is higher than everybody else's. So that means even on an off day, they're going to be training harder than everybody else, even if they had, everything going for them, like sleep, hydration, time. They didn't have to rush a workout. Maybe they had to wake up early the night before or the day before, whatever. So the guy who can bring it, he's ready. He's ready to make some serious gains, and he will continue to do so. It's a calm sea does not make a skilled sailor. Keep that in freaking mind, right? So an easy set ain't gonna make a good lifter, because you can only eat so much food for so long that's above what your body's comfortable with, if you can imagine, right? Because if let's say you got a guy, he can eat 2,500 every day, that's his baseline, that's very normal for him, and then suddenly you gave him 3,500. How many days in a row do you think he could really keep eating that 3,500? Whereas, let's say you took the same dude and then upped him to 2,700. A few weeks later, upped him to 2,900, 3,100, 3,300, right? Kind of easing into it, really just progressively overloading the calories, right? Because, if you look at it, the logic kind of takes place, or can be found in every other aspect of the working out, right? The more you work out, the more weights you should be working out with, right? The more, actually, what's another kind of, I was just thinking of one more. Well, we get the gist. The longer you can do, or the more cardio you end up doing, the easier that it's going to be to increase that cardio's difficulty level, do it a little bit longer. Same with the food, right? So rather than just jumping to like 1 zillion calories off the rip, continually increasing your calorie intake, I feel, is a good way to go about it. Because then you get to actually just watch, just watch the scale, right? The scale tells us all. It's like a freaking, it may as well be a damn Wiseman, right? You come up to him, pop a squat. Are you any heavier than the last few weeks? If not, you're clearly not eating enough food. Maybe your training could be off, your recovery could be off. It's not like there's no other factors than diet. But if you're training recovery, if you're lifting like a regular lifter and you're not seeing that size progress, of course train harder, but that should be true all the time. But what I would really say is eat harder, right? And I gotta keep saying this so I can kind of get the idea out there. When I say bulk up, if you've been plateaued, I do not mean get crazy soft. Excuse me. I'm not saying get yourself up to 35% body fat and then you got a chore in your hands to diet back down. I'm saying grow within a, let's just say, a reasonable body fat percentage that you will be able to manage. Because if it gets to a point where you increase your body fat beyond something you can deal with, now you're really screwed. Sure, you might be a bit bigger, but if you can't diet back down to the same body fat percentage you were before, then you will actually get to see the increased size gains while staying the same level of leanness, which is kind of the main point, right? That's what I'd be trying to do. Every time I diet down, I want to be just as lean as the last time I dieted, if not leaner, and holding more muscle in my frame. So if I took a bulk where I got way too freaking soft and I couldn't reverse diet back out of it, not that I think I wouldn't be able to, but it's just setting myself up for failure rather than success. If you kind of catch my drift there. So plan, let's just say an extreme situation, right? Maximum effort, honestly, probably close to, if not the most, just like physically demanding movement you could do. So the fact that it's like that and it's so serious, it demands a certain amount of respect, right? I would never, like I'm not even saying this as like workout motivation, like to say something hype. Like I would never try to get under upwards of 400, 500 pounds or so under a squat without seriously taking what I'm doing as seriously as I can actually do, or as seriously as I can take it, right? I'm treating it like I'm holding something that's loaded with the safety off, right? This is no time for horseplay. And not a lot of other movements are like that. Dumbbells, unless your form is off, if you ever fail, you just throw them down in front of you. You're good, right? Pull downs, there literally is no risk of getting crushed under the weight. Push downs, like tricep push downs, not that either. You can just rack it and you're done. No other movement. Leg press a little bit too, but leg press is pretty freaky if I ever did a machine that didn't have safeties, which could, stop me from getting crushed in the bottom. I would at least be careful, and at most I'd be careful. At least I'd get some spotters on the side, But there's something about the squat that really brings it. You get a little bit of extra heart pounding few minutes. It was to the point where when I first started really squatting crazy, I'd get nervous about it. Like I'd actually kind of be anxious knowing I would have legs the next day, just because of how nuts it was to squat like that, because it was a new thing for me. I hadn't really gotten into it. Now I've kind of made the adaptations, so I'm not so freaked on a neurological level to do crazy heavy squats. But in a way, I wish I could reset my system, because that fear, on just a mental level, obviously it's not afraid of it, but you know what I'm saying, and that that just antsiness to do it, I guess you could say it can make or break somebody, right? In the sense that somebody might look at that and say, okay, I don't want to do it, I'm done. Oh, no, not for me. Let's move on to leg extensions or hack squats or something. Or I think it can help pull more out of you as a lifter to bring it. And sometimes it just doesn't happen as much with other movements, at least not without just, serious risk. So one piece of intel that I can give you, and this is something where actually, getting kind of big sort of acts as what would the word be? Just kind of a validator, right? Because it's not always listen to this big dude's advice because he's big, because sometimes he just does stuff that works for him and it might not work for everybody else, right? But there is something I can say just about kind of making progress in general, is as long as you're on track, the satisfaction is pretty solid. It's pretty steady, and what I mean by that, actually got the audio a little too high, but what I mean by that is when I imagine back, when I was in my high school weight room, when I would sneak down there during study hall because the weight class teacher would let me come in and lift. And I'm I'd go into that little, the side bathroom, and I'm doing the side chest while I'm holding my phone with one hand, trying to, the satisfaction of finishing a lift and saying, oh yeah, I'm pumped up. Absolutely the freaking same over time, right? My sort of inner, yippee reaction from seeing myself with a chest pump at 270, which I'll probably be floating around, later towards the end of this year, or at freaking 170 back in the beginning of everything, it's about the same, you know? And I would imagine that it's going to be the same thing later on down the line once I can downsize, because I think I can say this: the working out in general, that's never going away. that is part of the routine indefinitely, right? Getting probably damn near daily pumps and the cardio, that's on the schedule to infinity. But, you know, staying so big and, you know, eating in this way where I'm actually kind of continuing to grow, that's not forever, right? Eventually we're going to see a 200-pound lean Sam. It's going to be a while, but, you know, eventually, right? Because there's no point staying like 250 forever. It's a little wild, right? But even when I probably come down from there and I'm going to be smaller, I'm still going to enjoy the pumps, man. Just because it's, I mean, for one, it's just cool seeing yourself bigger than you normally are, even if it's only for a small period of time. But it's more than that, you know. It's not like I just come to work out and, you know, my mind's all over the place and I'm just saying, and then at the end of it, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, oh, my biceps a little bigger, cool. Like, that's not it, you know, because you're involved, right? You're the one making this thing happen, and the workout itself just has a certain primal effort to it it's just sweet, man, you know. So what I mean by that is, like, just, it's not like you just fold your clothes, right? It's not like you because it's just so demanding, right? But it's not demanding like labor, right? It's not demanding like, you know, hauling around a 120-pound, actually it's probably closer to like a 150-pound paint machine, you know, throwing it up and down a freaking you know, truck trailer and running through lines in the summertime. I'm not talking about that kind of effort, because you want to do it, you know. That's I think that's the one difference that can separate, you know, something from feeling like a chore from feeling like an activity that you're excited to do. It's simply where your mind is, you know, kind of oriented around it, you know. Because you can let's say your dad is like a massive, you know, history buff, and you're on vacation or something, and he's like, holy shit, we're going to this museum, or we're going to this monument or something. His ass could be crazy excited about it, you know. This is my shit, you know. I'm talking like Shane Gillis level, you know, history interest, you know. That same exact activity, walking there looking at everything, for him is gonna be on top of the world. He's like, this is sick. But for someone else who kind of had to be dragged along and isn't really interested and isn't invested in it, you know, with any kind of whatever, and doesn't, you know, value it, he's not going to have any fun. You know, he's going to feel like he's just bored. He's not having any, he just doesn't get it, you know. So half of that, for me at least, is why sometimes it's tricky to force. You can't force someone to work out. You really can't force anybody to do anything. You know, it's, you can lead a horse to water. You can lead a lifter to the cardio bike. You can't make him pedal, right? You can't make him drink. He's got to do it on his own, you know. So that's where sometimes I've got a little sort of like double-sided take when I talk about, you know, hype, because I mean, you know, every so often I'm going to bring up, like, even when you're not feeling like it, you know, lock it in. Even when you're like a little off, you know, bring it, and then when you're done, you're going to feel better. You know, as though that's like a battle that you have to go through all the time. Which, if it is, if you're that kind of early in your routine, or like shit's just getting in the way with life, then, you know, even just coming to the gym, that can be a bit of, you know, kind of a cause for turmoil, where you're like, all right, okay, I got to bring it, I got to schedule a time, all right, let's do it. And that in and of itself is still hype, because you won that battle, right? You won that battle of grit where you're like, I'm not slacking, I'm going to do it. So there's nothing to knock that, right? But, you know, if you're really into it, if it's something you really want to do, then you don't really have that battle, you know, because you identify as the dude who's gonna do it. There is no question, right? Is there a question that, I mean, let me ask you, right? After all these lifts, do you think, or what do you think? Am I going to have an arm day tomorrow, or am I gonna say, I don't want to do it, I don't feel like it, I'm gonna stay home and chill, right? What's the answer? You know, am I going to do legs in 2 days? Or am I going to say to myself, oh, I don't know if I should be doing legs right now. Or, well, actually, we're kind of traveling around, so I might end up having to switch the routine. So discount that statement. But, you know, what I'm saying is, you want to get to a point where you're so kind of embroidered. I may not be the right word, but you're so kind of in tune with the working out, it's your thing, that it would be a surprise to someone if you said you were done with it. It would like shock somebody you know, or if you said like, all right guys, I'm done working out. I tried it for a while, didn't feel like it. I'm over it, don't care, right? Like imagine this video title, it's like, officially done with the gym. It'd be nuts, you know? So that's what I kind of want to aim for, if you get what I'm saying. These feel really freaking good though. This is one thing I'll never understand. Like, the idea for someone to be looking at it chest day and think, okay, I'm doing incline whatever. I'm doing hamstring press. I'm doing something. This feels really good. Let's move on to a different movement. I mean, obviously for the variability of the lift, but if it's working, shit man, I'll just do something new next time. I've had workouts where I did like 6 sets of just incline barbell bench and then 1 set of fly to finish. It was a pretty damn good lift, you know? So don't get locked into any kind of convention, right? I mean, you know, no one else is you. As far as I'm concerned, you should be in charge of your own training, 100%. You know, take information for what it's worth, but you know, don't be so easily swayable that you're doing a new routine every week. You know, there's just that's not a good track for progress, I would say. But those sets of actually that first set of incline barbell, that was cool. That was a prime example of what I'm referring to when I say getting hyped up and freaking excited. You know, you got some kind of song playing, you are ready, right? And you're ready to throw some weight around with a pretty dang serious amount of effort. I'm not talking, you know, in relative to anyone else, but you know where your limit is, and you know if you approach it or potentially cross it by really bringing it. You know, I feel like those sets are the ones that set the bar for what all of our training should look like. And then, you know, you can either match it and say, okay, that was a good lift, up to par for what I expect from myself. Or if you exceed it, then you get to say, all right, the bar has been raised. Now this is my new normal, and I gotta reach it every time. And it's also kind of an eye-opener if you can tell you didn't really reach your bar, because then that tells you, all right, I gotta bring it next time, you know? So that's, I think, it's so weird. I never say, or I never think to myself like, okay, I got to take accountability. But whenever I put these, you know, kind of thoughts into words in here, it makes me sound a little, makes me feel like I'm freaking talking out of a dictionary just to explain myself. But I want to be held accountable and, you know, hold myself accountable for making sure that I bring it, because then I'll have nothing to regret later. You know, if you've ever had weeks where you were off just for whatever reason, you know, just something, maybe something completely out of your control, and you're like, oh, well, nothing I can do but approach the situation as well as I can, you know. But if you really slack and the only person who to blame is you, you're like, I just didn't feel like it, in the future you will regret it. You will regret it, I guarantee it. I've felt it before. It's just it's no fun, you know. And that's with everything, you know. Oh man, I've been putting off this, I've been putting off this is a really good way of thinking about it. I hear this said by a lot of, well, it ends up getting said by a lot of like the 1%er guys, like the crazy CEO billionaire types. But I think it still holds true, because they'll always say this, I hear it a lot. It's like all of your, or at least a good chunk of anxiety, or just anxiousness, or just, you know, kind of unrest and uneasiness, you know, comes from the fact that you know you should be doing something, and you just don't do it for whatever reason, right? Or you just, you know, you pick the easy way out, you slack, you just don't want to, I don't want to, I'll just chill, whatever, you know. And then that kind of, it puts you in this situation, right? It's like you're playing a game and you've got a main quest, or even just random ass side quests, and instead of doing them and moving forward, you're just hanging out in the tavern and just playing a mini game. You know, nobody would play, I've never played Elden Ring or anything, but nobody would play it if you didn't go through and do shit and see stuff and just like enjoy the story of it if all you do is just stay in the same spot right in the beginning and just scamper around there doing nothing, right? There's no story, there's nothing to enjoy. And I don't think that's a bad way of looking at just being alive, you know, because it's got a beginning. Unfortunately, it's definitely got an end somewhere, which, shit, man, I mean, we live in a real freaking mortal world. I gotta get hit by a meteor right now. I would, if that actually happened, that'd be terrible, but you know what I'm saying, right? Shit could just happen, you know? So I want to make sure that whatever I end up spending my time doing, even if it's just an hour and a half, I mean, workout from beginning to end. I think I started at like 4:10. It's 5:10 now. I was in there for like barely over an hour doing chest. So 1 hour out of your day, that's less than 5% of your day. But that includes the time you're sleeping. So let's say you're only awake doing stuff for, let's just say 12 hours, right? Let's give the rest of those, because if you sleep 8, that gives you 4 hours of actual dedicated chill time, right? I'm not trying to be like Gary Vee here. I'm not on it 24/7 trying to do shit, you know? So even if you got 12 hours where you're, you know, sometime within that 12, you can put an hour for a workout, or an hour for practicing something, or working on some kind of hobby, or working on just anything that's going to give you a certain gratitude and long-lasting something or other. Shit. Still less than 10% of your day. I think that's worth it, right? Why not allocate that, you know, instead of just letting it slip away, right? So if, I mean, it's easy to say it like this, because obviously retrospect is 2020, or hindsight is 2020, you know? So if you could flip a button and say, okay, would you rather live in a reality where for the past 5 years you've been working out, doing your cardio, and you're in solid shape? Or would you rather have the last 5 years you did none of that? Everybody would hit the button, because you'd want to be in a situation where you get to reap the rewards from working out. I mean, everybody wants to be in at least decent shape. So I think it's a minor cost to pay. And for me, I think I'm kind of hypocritical here when I call it a cost, because the workout's fun, right? I mean, even if sometimes I'm like, oh, all right, let's go do the cardio, you know, it's still something I want to do, and I know that I want to do it. So to not do it, it's like I'm disrespecting my own morals. You know what I'm saying, right? Not cool. So that's all I'm trying to get at. But yeah, I feel kind of weird saying all that, because obviously if you're here, you know, chilling with me, you work out. You're locking in already. I don't think there's a massive percentage of people tuning into some of these daily lifts where they don't work out at all. You know, unless you work out and you like showed your buddy, or they were like, wait, why do you keep watching that guy? Or, you know, something like that, right? So I guess maybe I should talk from the perspective of lifter to lifter. Sometimes I can tell I end up talking a lot of lifter to non-lifter sort of, you know, hype, almost kind of freaking weightlifting preaching in a way, because I know all the benefits that can be had from it. So I feel like I want to share them, put them out there, right? Live in a world with more people lifting weights. That's what I want to see. But yeah, so chest complete, and frankly, yeah, I think I'm gonna go a little heavier next time I do incline barbell for, you know, real hefty, not even always compound movements, but at least ones where you're loading a good amount of weight safely. No reason to hold back, you know. And by hold back, I just mean take the gas off, take the pressure off, and ease up in any capacity. I'm usually the kind of guy where I've been saying it's like, you know, it doesn't matter about being diced. If you're making progress, you can be lean later, you know. Like, enjoy the benefits of being big and lean at the cost of, you know, being big and soft for a period of time, right? You do a big off season, maybe you take a year where you really try to gain size, even just very, you know, slow and steadily and controlled. Then at the end of it, when you diet down, now you're ahead of where you were before, right? It's like you're making a long-term investment, you know, but you're aiming for, like, I feel like the dieting down side of things is essentially a dividend, right? You got to hold the stock of being bulked up and lean, or bulked up and a little softer, for long enough until you can get that payout later on, you and most guys are just looking for that kind of steady gain, stay the same size, kind of main gaining sort of situation. And if it's working, obviously I have nothing to say, because what you're doing is working, right? Your gains and your progress will speak for itself, and there's no arguing with objective results. But if you can tell you're kind of slowing down, you're not benching more than you were a few months ago, to a degree, right? Eventually, I think there's a limit of feasible, usable weight. Like I don't think there's ever a world where I'm gonna get bigger by, trying to work up to like a 5-plate bench, right? There is kind of that upper limit of a ceiling in a way. But, for anything below that, if you're not getting a bit stronger, getting larger, at least by any noticeable degree that you can see by looking at any sort of progress pictures, you got to change a variable. Your equation is an equilibrium, and that's what your body likes. That's what it's comfortable with. It wants to stay the same. It wants to stay right where you are. That's half the gist of our whole system, right? Circadian rhythm. It wants to wake up at the same time, do the same amount of energy expending, eat the same amount of food, and just have the same day. It's very natural. That's kind of that just leads to order, right? Just same stuff on repeat. But some glitch in the matrix gave us the ability to be conscious of our own thoughts and efforts. And what ended up being lucky for somebody like me, where this is just my thing, I get to say, all right, I'm in pretty decent control of my whole life, and I want some more muscle on my frame. So I'm going to try to break past that, sort of law of nature leading me to just stay the same size, be the same dude, and essentially just outdo it with the training routine, the diet, the sleeping, and the hydration, and everything, so that I can be in the state I want to be and enjoy the process of getting there. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is you got to fight the power, right? Stick with it, don't slack off, because you're going to enjoy those gains later on, right? But that's the downside. It's going to take a while. I don't see that as a downside, because I'm in it for the long haul. But for anybody who's not so steadfast about it, sometimes it can take a little bit of extra sort of etching into their mind to get into that kind of mindset. But yeah, look, you can look at things in two ways, right? And frankly, I think this is a good descriptor of people as well. In any endeavor, in any actor, path of life, you've got the Gokus and you got the Vegetas, right? Now the Vegeta, he's looking for anybody ahead of him, and he's got some jealousy. And jealousy is the motivation. I need to be better than this guy so that I can feel good about myself. Not an awesome approach. And even, anybody could look at that and would come to the same conclusion. But it's not always so simple as thinking that and then applying it to your own, thought processes and freaking life, So it's like if somebody calls you an asshole and you say, no, I'm not. It's not something you can actually tell, it's more so something that people can tell about you. And then there's the Gokus. There's the Gokus of the world who simply want to get better. They want to do what they like. They want to have fun with it. And the fact that, effort is going to result in improvement, that's the cool part, The whole point of it is change and adaptation and, overcoming and skill building and challenge. There is no journey without obstacles to overcome, right? There is no Lord of the Rings if Middle Earth had a subway station, or had, Delta Airlines to take Frodo all the way over there, and his main problem is, oh, Sam, they delayed our flight. There's no story there. There's nothing to enjoy or look back on, So it's very easy to say that. Actual, real difficulties and problems to overcome, in real life, you don't look at them and think, wow, I get an obstacle to go through. No, it sucks, right? It's hard. But just like a freaking leg day, you get to look back at it and think, all right, that was pretty crazy, right? But I made it, right? You can think back at imagine a time where you felt you were pretty low. Right? You were in a low time. Things were not working out your way, be it your fault or the fault of someone else's, and you just got to deal with it. In in the moment, you probably were not having that much fun. You know, I can look back at a good couple periods like that. I'm talking just totally freaking out about, you know, any given matter of the sort. Whoa, right? Not cool. But time's gonna pass, and you think, all right, well, you know, I mean, this is at least how I think about it, right? Because if you've ever been through some shit of any variety, it's kind of what has gotten you to where you are now, you know. So I never look back and think, man, I wish all these crazy, just whatever things never happened to me. Those sucked. Because I know if, you know, my whole life wasn't exactly how it was, I would not be where I am right now, you know. So if you can get to a place you're happy with, then it almost negates any kind of difficulty or uncomfortability you had to deal with beforehand, because now you're like, okay, nice, made it through the tricky part, and here we are. Now I get to enjoy, right? So that's kind of a classic trope, light at the end of the tunnel style thought process of motivation. Sometimes you got to trudge through it. You know, it's not always fun and games, right? We're a freaking live, and that comes with a reasonable amount of responsibilities and, you know, whatever else that you've got to deal with. Right? So it's that's one thing I like about working out, and it's not even the working out part that's so important. It's just it's something. You know, anybody could say this exact same sort of speech about whatever it is that they like. You know, this is the thing I love about woodworking, man. You know, you got infinite possibilities, and you get to bring what you want into this world. You know, or like this is what I love about miniature painting, right? You can, like, it could be anything, right? So the point isn't what that thing is, but it's being able to dive into something. And I mean, the act of just like practice of anything, whether, let's say, you're a freaking you know, small filmmaker, you know, DP kind of producer kind of guy. If you're like, you're crazy into the cameras, which now I am, a total freaking, you know, camera nerd, recording all this stuff. It could be anything. The process of trying to work at something to get better at it, just for your own sake, like purely because you like it, that translates world freaking wide. Not to derail my talk just now, but that guy was wearing like silvery gold, like tiny mini shorts, and he was not on a run. He was just having a brisk walk. But getting back on topic, I really need a 360 cam so I can show you shit like that when I see it when I'm out here. But yeah, it's just trying to get better at something. That is a key aspect of getting to enjoy life, I feel. And it doesn't matter what it is, and it really doesn't matter how good you are or what level you are at it at any given moment. You know, because it's not about your position or your current skill level or your, you know, placing in the hierarchy of everybody else who's involved with what you're doing. It's just whether or not you are maintaining or if you are slowly progressing, right? And even slow progression is massive on a long-term scale, because any percentage of constant progression, it's not just one step at a time. Every step actually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem is we're not really wired to think exponentially, right? I mean, if somebody told you just save, I mean, it's like when we hear the guys talking, like, if you put $800 a month into an S&P IRA index fund, right? You know, anything like that, then after 45 years, that will actually add up to, you know, some crazy freaking amount. You know, the same thing goes with anything you try to get involved in, man. Right? Constant effort, constant progression. You know, at least if you are making it and doing everything it takes to make it, it adds up. And before you know it, you're the guy people are coming to for freaking advice about whatever that thing is, and you're just a better dude, right? I'm not saying better in an objective sense, but more so just like you got something you'd like to do, right? Every morning, you know, you got at least something on your agenda that you're excited for, and that makes you want to get out of bed and just, you know, live to do, right? There's a big difference between being alive and living. So if you can have something where that is sort of an internal thought you can have, where it's like, yeah, this is pretty fun, I like doing this, you got it better off, right? And if anybody doesn't have something like that, that's your cue to look for it. You got time. You know, there's no freaking rush here. So if you can have something you can spend you know, an hour, 2 hours, whatever amount per week working on, you will have a better time. And if it's working out, even better, right? Of course, I'm going to say that. I love the working out. But it was my sophomore year when I did a really big bulk. And for the whole 4 or 5 months or however long I was bulking for, no pump checks at all. Long sleeves, pants only, nothing to look at, because I wanted to see a change by the time that I was done with it. I wanted to say, all right, I want to look at myself and say, holy crap, I got bigger, rather than, you know, just see it, you know, on a day-by-day slow sort of scale, which, you know, dieting down aspect, I feel is actually much cooler than the getting bigger aspect, especially after a while, you know, because obviously, I mean, if you're a beginner, I mean, our first 6 months of working out, that's a pretty drastic change without a lot of body fat gain. But, you know, when you get into all sorts of like just getting leaner over the course of time and losing pounds of body fat, that can be pretty abrupt, you know. So that's where, I mean, if you're actually losing weight every morning, then I might only do a pump check once a week, right? Because then I'll actually have a visual change while I know that my weight is going down, so I've got confirmation what I'm doing is working, and then going from there, you know what I'm saying? So it's worth thinking about, right? Because obviously, you know, a watched pot never boils, you know, so just work out and wait. That's half of it, you know. I can sit on leg extensions forever. Leg presses, hack squats, pendulums, those are ones that really make me say, okay, holy crap. And I kind of have to, you know, not force myself to do the set, but tell myself, like, all right, just hit it, come on, you know. Because if a set is so chill that you can just do them after, you know, one after another in perpetuity, how heavy is that training, right? And not how heavy, but just how intense and how productive is it, you know? The whole difficulty and the whole benefit or kind of coolness factor of legs versus any other muscle group is the fact that it's so hard, and you end up getting a certain relief at the end of it because you're like, holy crap, I did it, right? I never have to sit in the car after a chest day and think, oh, I did it, man, that was freaking hard. Chest is more fun, and it's not as it's just every different muscle group has a different angle to it, and quads has got to be the hardest because the benefit and the coolness factor of really hitting your quads only comes at the end, right? Actually, like sitting under a crazy heavy squat or pendulum or hack or anything, I mean, it's like anxiety in a freaking bottle, man. This shit is heavy, you know. So it's the fact that you can overcome that and actually bring it that sort of gives you that sense of relief and satisfaction, you know. Plus, knowing that more people than not would not do what you're doing, right? I mean, there's a reason legs getting skipped. It's a pretty classic, like, gym culture cliche joke. It's because it's true. You know, it's not just a made-up thing, right? So if you want results that are different from the guy next to you, if you want to be in a situation that is different than the guy next to you, you got to do what he's not going to do. And I mean, it's just as simple as that, you know. So if most people are going to skip legs, if you want to be different than most lifters, hit them. If most guys aren't counting their calories, if you want to be different than them, count your calories. If most guys don't really, you know, actually continue to gain weight and make progress, if you want to be different than them, that's what you have to do. And that's not like a groundbreaking thought. It's like if you do everything the exact same way somebody else does, and for some reason expect different results, look it up in the dictionary. You are literally insane, right? So that's where it's sometimes the trickier parts are where you got to lean into them with a little bit of extra energy, just because you know if you can amp yourself up to get them done, you'll be ahead of the pack, right? You want to be ahead of the curve in all aspects, training-wise. You know, I've never really, and this is with anything, this is with dieting down, this is with bulking up. A lot of the times I see this as a motivator. Guys are like, oh, dude, you know, I look like shit. I gotta lift. It's like, okay, are you joking? And then some of these guys actually look good. Like, you're a big ass dude already. You're gonna say you look like shit and that's your motivation to work out? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, let's be objective here. You can look solid and still want to make progress, right? You shouldn't feel as though you need to explain why you want to work out or why you want to get a little bit bigger or anything like that. Because you just want to do it, and that's your thing. And the pursuit of it is fun enough that it doesn't need any other explanation, right? But yeah, so for me, it's always just, I can get a little bigger. I want to see what that's going to be like. So this is making me happy right now, thinking about the fact that I know somewhere out in the world, potentially close by, there is someone doing a set of squats to absolute insane failure, or leg press, you know, or bench, or anything, you know. Someone is getting after it, right? You know, insert a sort of thought bubble teleporting visual, right? Maybe somewhere out there, Larry Wheels is benching 800 pounds, or Julius Maddox is doing, has he done 800 yet? He's up in the 7s, that's for sure, which is still freaking nuts. Or Andre Smev, or Smaev, however you pronounce it, you know, he's curling a 250-pound dumbbell. Right? The fact that I know all these guys are out there going nuts, that's a motivating factor, right? That's a situation that makes me think, all right, I want to join the bandwagon. You know, I'm rolling up to the gym, I got my own weights, it's all going to weigh the same. And I want my intensity to be top tier, right? I want it to be up there with anybody else. And if you can do that for long enough, before you know it, you'll kind of sort of scale the echelon, as it were, right? It's like it's like how stand users are drawn to each other. It's the same thing with guys who can bench the 150s. It's the same things with anybody who could squat, you know, upwards of 5 plates or so, right? It just there's this magnetic force from having those abilities after you kind of, you know, train them up for long enough, where you just end up running into people doing the same shit, you know, or by maybe a little less construed measures. Right? Just seeing them when we're all posting our videos talking about shit. But that's the cool part, right? And then in kind of a reverse internal hype for me, I know there's, you know, for as many guys who are out there this current given second killing it, I don't know. Honestly, for every one set of balls to the wall, 1,000,000% intensity that's going on at this given moment, damn, there's thousands, maybe millions of sets going on that are and that's even worse, right? That's the freaking hard part of looking at this situation. You know, it's like there's 1,000,000 sets that could be done. You want yours to be the diamond in the rough, where you're absolutely freaking bringing it, you know. And then it's a little counterintuitive, but I feel as though the harder you go, the more you get to enjoy it, right? And you would think it's like, okay, well, that doesn't sound exactly right. You know, the harder I work out, the harder it is, and the more uncomfortable it is. Not exactly, right? I feel it's more so you kind of get trained up to being able to handle it, and then before you know it, it's like I wouldn't say a cakewalk, of course, but it's the point. It'll get to the point where you know what you're capable of, and you want to bring it, instead of just, you know, using the gym as more of your daily activity for the day, which of course is sweet, right? But if you want to be a freaking dog, I think you gotta bring it a little more than the average guy. For chest and lighter body parts, you know, things where there's no mortal risk, sometimes it can take a little bit if you really get in the zone and to bring it, you know. So that's where it's got to be almost purely internal, that you've got that drive for whatever set that you're about to do. Because with a squat, I mean, I don't care how good or bad you might feel, you're going to stand up straight if you see that in front of you. And you know you've got that plan for your workout, right? Whereas any other smaller muscle group, it's not as hard to slack off because the movements themselves don't demand that much, you know, just like prep. So what I'm getting at, or the main point I've been trying to say this whole time, is now that's on me, right? There is nothing essentially forcing me to go crazy, because I can always just drop the weight if I want to and say, I don't want to do this, and that could be the end of it, right? I could just drive home and, you know, sit in the Wendy's parking lot and, you know, play on my phone for 3 hours before going back home, right? There's no rule keeping me from doing that. Of course, that's not what I want to do. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, we'll see. I'll see how I feel, because if it's ever a chest day where I can tell my shoulder might be a little off, or I'm just not really feeling, I don't want to say strong, but just not, like, you can kind of develop a sense where you can say to yourself, I probably shouldn't bench 300 pounds today, or I probably shouldn't do, this or that or the other. And sometimes you should listen to that inside voice, because that's what's going to keep you from getting hurt.